Hello everybody, starting from this video, we're going to start to learn a regression analysis. So 14, 15, 16, they all relate to regression analysis. So the differences is we are actually getting harder and harder situation. So chapter 14, we are focusing on the simple linear regression model. And chapter 15, we look at a relatively more complicated situation called the multiple linear regression model. In chapter 16, we're going to discuss in the general regression analysis. And so chapter 14 is actually very, very important because it actually building the foundation for the regression analysis. So no matter simple, multiple, or general multiple linear regression model, and you will know as you finish all the learning, you will notice that the regression analysis follow a same analysis procedure. Step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. So we actually follow the same steps. So that's why for chapter 14, when I organizing my lecture videos, I actually organize as step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And we work on your homework, and also we work on your practice question for the attendance check, and you will notice that they all have the follow the same steps. So that's basically what you should focus on. So what are the important steps you have to go through, and make sure you remember the order of the steps, and also how to use the Excel to assist you to get the answer to help you to do the regression analysis. So you will follow the same steps when you work on your own project. So that's why it's very important you follow the video through one by one. Don't jump to any other videos because they follow the steps. And so before we start the lecture, and so I want you to print out the three very important handouts. So the first handout, and you'll be able to download under this week's module called attendance check due Friday 11 p.m. And so there is a Word document. So please download this Word document. And so it's a Word document you definitely can type on your computer, or you can just print it out and you can write it on this handout. And the second handout I want you to print out, it is under the lectures, so called the under the lectures. And you will see it is called a chapter 14 handout. So if you open that file, and you will see there are 2 pages. So 2 pages. So this is the Excel output for one of the examples we're going to use in this chapter to analyze, to help you to understand how to interpret those results. So it's very important for you to download this file, and ideally you can print it out, because as you watch the video, you should take note on this handout. In terms of where to find your slope, where to find your y-intercept, where to find the important statistics you need to analyze to perform the regression analysis. So that's why I really highly recommend you to print it out if you can find a printer. If not, you should mark on the handout using your computer software. So the Word document or a PDF document actually allow you to take note on them. So make sure you use this file effectively, because if you take good note, you're going to make your work more effectively and more efficiently. So this is the second handout. And the third handout is also under the lecture, and find the computer skill 4. So find the computer skill 4. So when you watch the computer skill 4, which is basically teach you the Excel skills, and so you should use this handout, computer skill 4 PDF file, to guide you through the examples. Because when you work on an example, you have to know what kind of case you're analyzing, what kind of learning objective you try to achieve. So that's why for this week, make sure you download all 3 files. Ideally, you can print them out. So let's look at our chapter 14 together. So chapter 14a. So first of all, in 14a, chapter 14, I separate into 2 parts. So in part A, we are focusing on what is regression model. So what is regression analysis procedure? And so it's very, very important you have that big picture of how many steps you have to go through in order to perform the proper regression analysis. So we're going to learn the steps first. So when we look at those steps, you might have no idea because you haven't learned detail yet, but you have to understand those steps are guiding our the further learnings. So we step by step we're learning how to do the regression analysis. And then after that, we look at how the simple linear regression model look like. So we look at the model itself. You have to remember the model. So how you write down the model. So when you talk about simple linear regression model, you have to know how that model should look like. So that's the second thing we're going to look at. And the third thing we look at in the Part A is after you use your sample data to estimate the simple linear regression model, how you test the quality of the sample model and how to test the quality of the sample model. And we're going to learn statistics to measure it. And the next step we're going to look at is, so after you test the quality of the sample model, how you know this sample model can be used to representing the population. So that's why that's the last step we look at in Part A is how you're going to use the statistic method to test the significance of the model, which means if you can use this sample model to predict the population. So that's basically what we're going to learn in Part A. And in Part B, Chapter 14, Part B, what we're going to focus on going to be after you receive a good quality of the model and how you're going to use the model to do the prediction and forecasting. So that's basically why we are learning regression model, because the prediction power of the regression model, it allows the business making better decision if they have a model in hand to forecasting what's going to happen in the future or in the population. So that's why in Part B, we're going to focus on how to use the regression model to do the forecasting and the prediction. So just to summarize what I just mentioned, so these are the things we're going to cover in Part A. What is simple linear regression model? What is the least square method? And then how to measure the quality of the sample model. We use coefficient of determination. And what are the assumptions we impose on the models? And also the lastly, we're going to look at how to know our sample model can be used to representing the population. So the method we use is called the testing for the significance. So we actually use the same steps when you do the regression analysis and when you work on your homework. And so we totally have two cases. So two cases, you will notice the similarity between the two cases because for each case, you are basically answering the similar questions. Why they're similar? They even follow the same order. It is because, as I said, when you do the regression analysis, you follow the procedure. So you are follow the fixed steps, step by step. So that's why when you watch the video, please don't skip any videos because it's literally taught you step by steps. And in this first video, and we're going to look at what is the analysis procedures and also what are the core concepts you have to know before we start to learn a simple linear regression model. So first, to help you to understand what is a simple linear regression model or what is regression analysis, I want you to think about this case. So what is going to affect the size of the coffee shop? So let's imagine you have an idea. After you graduate, you want to run a coffee shop. Maybe you join the Starbucks franchise to run the coffee shop in Erie. So if that's the case, one of the questions you have to consider is how big your coffee shop is going to look like. So if you look at a Starbucks, they're all Starbucks, but the one in the Mill Creek Mall and then the one outside Mill Creek Mall, the size are totally different. So the one in the Mill Creek Mall is much smaller than the one outside Mill Creek Mall. So what actually affects the size of the coffee shop? So if that's the question you're facing, and so the first of all you're going to ask yourself is, so what other factor might affect the size of the coffee shop? So I give you 20 seconds to think about it, and so the question is, what actually going to affect the size of a coffee shop? I'm sure you came out a bunch of your reason or factor you think might affect the size of a coffee shop. So let me just list a few. So when you think about the size of a coffee shop, so you kind of try to predicting how large the coffee shop should be if you really plan to run the coffee shop. So that actually you should notice that there are a lot of factors going to affect that decision. So first of all, what is your budget? So if you have a larger budget, you can afford larger space. If you have smaller budget, you can only afford small space. And the second, the potential customers. So if you have a larger group of customers waiting for you, so you definitely need a larger space, right? And also the availability of the space, And so if you want to rent a place, it's not like, so first in the one in the Mill Creek Mall, they only have the small spaces. Even you want a bigger coffee shop, you won't be able to run there. So availability of the space. And a drive-through only or dine-in only. So if you only have the drive-through spot, why you need a big space? So if you do a dine-in, then the people have to find a place to sit. So you definitely have to think about to offer larger space. So you might need a bigger coffee shop. And also, how about the potential employee you want to hire. So how many employee you potentially might facing. That is another important factor might affect you to make a decision. How large of the coffee shop? So why I mention this example? The reason is because we want to learn regression model, and we're going to look at how those factors might be able to help me to predict the size of the coffee shop. So if you go back to think about your project, so if your group is studying what are going to affect student GPA, so you are thinking, wait a second, there are so many factors going to affect the student GPA. So if you will be able to build a model that connect the relationship between the GPA and other factors, you actually can use that model to predict the student's GPA. So for instance, you are looking at the factors including the age, the gender, the class standing, etc., and how those going to affect in the GPA. So once you know the student's age, if your model is good, if you know student GPA, age, gender, etc., you actually can predict how will be their GPA look like, how their GPA can look like. So the reason I use this example is try to help you to understand why we are learning the regression model, why the regression model is so emphasized in the business world. It is because the powerful prediction power, the powerful prediction power. So first of all, what we're going to look at is, so what are the steps we have to go through if you want to do the regression analysis?